smart and work hard, but just aren't where or who you want to be. Welcome to your podcast, Real Confidence. I'm your host, Alyssa DeVere, and I'll be sharing a bit of brain science, some surprising social secrets, and a touch of tough love. Why? Because I believe confidence is everyone's fundamental right and choice. So let's get to it. Andy Storch, I'm giddy. I'm psyched to be here with you. I can see you and you're smiling back, and I know my listeners are going to smile just hearing your story. Even though it sounds really sad to begin with, we know that the punchline is you're fine and you're great and you're awesome. Right. And I'm here talking to you with just absolute goosebumps. So tell the listeners a little bit about you and why we're here.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm pumped to be here. This is awesome because we get an opportunity to help people. So I'm Andy Storch. I'm a consultant, coach, a speaker, author. I've got a book called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. I do a lot of work in the corporate space, working to inspire people to take ownership of their careers. I'm also a husband and a father of 2 kids, and I live in sunny Orlando, Florida. And I think we're talking today, not necessarily about career stuff, but overcoming major challenges, and especially health challenges, because I went through testicular cancer. I found out that I had testicular cancer in November 2020. And in fact, I had surgery 2 days after I published my book. And then I thought that might take care of it, but I later found out that the cancer had spread to my stomach and my neck. And I started on a journey of doing tons of research and trying a lot of different things, including listening to my doctors and doing a lot of other things that doctors don't tell you about. And I went through chemotherapy, which was awful, but a necessary evil at the time, as well as doing many other natural things, several months of treatment and, discomfort and all sorts of things. But I got through it. And as of just a couple of months ago, I got the all clear from my doctor that my latest scan showed that I'm 100% cancer-free, in remission, whatever you want to call it. Life is good. So as you mentioned, the punchline of the story is that I made it through and I'm healthy.
All right. Well, I'm going to peel apart a couple of things that you dropped in there, because there was a lot in one sequence there, and I don't want to miss some of these gems. First of all, just give people an idea. You don't have to say specific age, because, that's sometimes people don't, but you're not an old guy. You've got young kids.
Right. No, well, actually, I get where you're going with this question. And the surprising thing is actually the opposite that was so surprising. I was 40 years old when I found out I had testicular cancer. I'm 41 now. And testicular cancer, it turns out, is a young man's disease. It typically affects men between the ages of 18 and 40. And I was at the top end of that window. I just snuck it in right before. But I shared a lot of my journey on social media. As soon as I found out, I shared it on social media. I shared the whole entire journey, a lot of it on LinkedIn and Instagram. And a lot of people appreciated that. I wanted to let people know what was going on. I had several people reach out to me and say, thank you for sharing. I've been going through cancer as well, and I have not told anybody because I didn't feel comfortable. So everybody's in their own area of comfort on that, right? And everybody has to do the right thing for them. But in doing that, I also connected with a lot of people who had also gone through testicular cancer. Like you've formed this club, especially of, men who we've all had a testicle removed. So, but I found out that my next door neighbor, who was like a 30-year-old guy, had gone through it when he was 18. And a lot of guys have gone through it at 18, 19. It's I won't say it's very common at that age, but it happens a lot for whatever reason.
So, and you're such a positive person, and I didn't know you prior to all of this. So let's dig into, there's a lot of again, the gems that you dropped in there, because you were diagnosed, you go through this situation. Talk to me about your confidence. You remember where you were mentally at that time?
Yeah. So I had already done a lot of what we'll call inner work, personal development. I've been just investing a ton into personal development since 2016, reading books, listening to podcasts, joining mastermind groups, hiring coaches, doing a lot of, mindset type work that has allowed me, doing a lot of meditation and mindfulness work, which I think allowed me to build a lot of resilience, investing in building a growth mindset so that I can kind of turn up challenges into opportunities, do hard things, very different from the way I grew up. And I wrote a chapter in my book about mindset, and I was all about how you can turn challenges into opportunities and overcome setbacks. But I hadn't really faced any huge challenges up to that point. I had my share of challenges until this, but I also, I think, was well equipped going into this to be able to address it. And one thing I knew was that fear doesn't really serve anybody too well. And then I don't want to diminish fear. Like, fear is natural, and it's normal, I think, in a situation like that. But I chose to see this as more of a challenge than this like scary thing. And I also looked at it logically. My urologist told me that testicular cancer, I think, has a 97% survival rate if you go through the treatment, depending on when you catch it, that sort of thing. So I knew that I was going to be able to take care of it. I just didn't know how long it was going to take. I was more annoyed that it was going to get in the way of marketing my new book and all the things that I wanted to do. Kind of saw as an annoying challenge. But I also I look at the challenges that we face in life and realize that we're all going to face challenges. We all have different challenges. A lot of people told me throughout my ordeal that, like, you really put things into context for me when I was going through something. I figured, like, well, I don't have it as bad as Andy. And I would say, look, it's not a competition, right? We all have challenges that we face. And usually that thing that you're facing seems like the worst thing in the world in the moment. Yes. But what I remember during that time is the nature of impermanence. It's not going to last forever. And we all face challenges. And if I do the right things and have the right mindset, I will get through this. And so I think in developing that mindset and believing in myself and, like, kind of the process that I can get through this, that build confidence. The other thing was that my book is called Own Your Career, Own Your Life. I'm a big fan of taking ownership of your career and your life. I'm also now a big fan of taking ownership of your health as well. So I really try to take full ownership of the situation. And what I mean by that is taking a holistic approach, asking a lot of questions of my doctor, not just doing whatever they say, because, your doctor probably has your best interest in mind, but frankly, they don't know everything. And there could be other things that you could be doing, investigating a lot of different options, doing a lot of my own research, so that I had all the information, as much information as I could arm myself with. And I think that builds a lot of confidence. I know I've talked with you about confidence on my podcast, and I think having more information, you don't want to get into information overload, but having that information builds a lot more confidence that, like, okay, I know I can get through this. This is how I'm going to do it. I know it's going to be hard, but I know I will get through it, and I'll come out the other end and it will be better. And turns out it was.
Well, the real MO for me, the motivation to have you here, other than the fact I just adore you and you have such a great story here, but we have something really very much in common. I don't even know if you are aware of it. My origin story, if you have my hero story, and how I started ACI. I won't get into dribs and drabs of it, but it has to do with my older son, who was diagnosed with a neurological crisis when he was 8, and hearing the doctor after drugs and poking and prodding him for years, I was like, I'm done. Like, no, I don't, the doctors. And so I'm not going to tell anyone who's listening to not listen to their doctor. That's not at all what I'm saying, but you get to a point where you're like, I got to take ownership of this. And it's scary. It's confidence challenging on every level. We're not doctors, right? Like I was a marketing chick. I didn't have any medical degree.
Right.
But what comes out the other end is not just the confidence that you've overcome, hopefully, but there is a sense of that control word, the other C word. Yeah. And I'm wondering, do you remember the moment that you said, I'm not, because I know you said to the doctors, no more chemo. I'm not doing it anymore. And it was scary. So what was that moment like? And why did you say, I'm done, I'm taking ownership, I'm doing something different?
Yeah. So I was committed to taking ownership throughout. And you're right. Like, doctors, there's a lot of great doctors out there, and they have your best interests. Most of them have your best interest in mind. But what I've found in researching and investigating this whole situation is that doctors are generally focused on treating the one thing that's in front of them, which is a symptom. But they're not thinking about the holistic view, right? They're not thinking about the bigger picture. And they're often not thinking about the long-term ramifications, right? So a doctor sees cancer, and the regular regimen is give them chemo, and that will kill the cancer, and give them more chemo, and that will kill the cancer more, right? They don't have to live with your body for the next 40 or 50 years, but I do, right? And so I wanted to take a holistic approach to this, look at all different options. And, my research of chemotherapy is it's a toxic chemical. It is designed to, its origins are in the what's it called? Like the gas that was used, chemical warfare during World War I. That is the origin of chemotherapy, is from the chemicals used during warfare in World War I. And, research that was then done subsequently in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and it hasn't changed that much since then. And so I don't want to put this stuff in my body. Now, I tried a lot of natural things. I ended up being in so much pain that I ended up going into the hospital in January 2021 and doing the chemotherapy. Turned out I had pancreatitis that was causing me so much pain. And once I started doing the chemo and I did I got hydration, really, I got fluids, it kind of, that calmed down. So I ended up doing 2 cycles of chemo, and I didn't want to do anymore. It was the most awful experience I've had in my life. And so I got tests done, and they came back and showed the cancer, which had spread to my stomach and my neck, had receded, was no longer in my neck, but there's a little bit left in my stomach. And my oncologist said, we just need you to do 1 more cycle of chemo, and I think you'll be done. And I said, well, I don't want to do any more chemo. And she said, well, this is the standard protocol for this. So I said, okay, well, I asked a bunch of questions and let me think about it, and went back, did a lot of research, found studies of people that had gone through it with 2 cycles of chemo, realized that it could already be receding on its own. Went back and forth a lot. Quite frankly, this is one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. I was also looking at investing a lot of money into some, natural solutions to heal my gut biome, stuff that I can't even really go into here, but it was a tough decision. I talked to a couple of close friends. Nobody has the answer, right? Nobody knows what to do. Only you know what to do. And my wife supported me either way. And ultimately, I decided to pass on that chemo. And it was because I felt like I could get through without it. And I didn't want to put that stuff into my body anymore. And quite frankly, I was afraid. I didn't like doing it. And that was part of it too. I just didn't want to do any more of it. And I was willing to take a chance and try the other things. And that's what we did. And it worked out well. I'm, like I said, I'm cancer-free today without doing the additional round of chemo, which, if you're looking at that decision, on a micro level, it increases your odds of beating cancer because it kills the cancer in the moment. But the question I kept asking myself was, what if the other side of that is it takes 10 years off my life, right? Because I'm putting toxic chemicals in my body. That's a tough decision. And what my wife and I decided, just like when we started the chemo, and then when we made this decision, is whatever decision we make, we go with that with confidence, right? That once we make that decision, we are confident in that decision, because I believe so strongly in mindset. I believe that your body will follow what your mind wants to do. And I'm not saying you could heal cancer with your mind, but if you choose to do something, but then you hate it the entire time, or you're against it the whole time, then I don't think it's going to work as effectively as if you sit there and believe and meditate on it and say, this is going to work for me. I can feel it, killing the cancer, whatever it may be. So I skipped that round of chemo, but I still did a lot of other things. I was juicing every day. I switched to a plant-based diet. I was taking tons of supplements, as I was doing high dose vitamin C. And I invested a lot in some natural therapies to heal my gut biome as well. And luckily it all paid off.
Well, you said in that conversation just now, you said, it was a scary decision. You didn't know for sure. You didn't have certainty, which is the foundation of confidence. But what you did know is that whatever you decided, you were going in it whole brain, right? Whole heart, whole brain. And whether people believe in, the spirits or the mindset,
religion or yourself or whatever,
it almost doesn't matter. It's in many circumstances, and this one's an extreme one.
Yeah.
Don't always know, and you can't always know, but you still have to make a decision and commit to it, right? And I think that was a really bold move, and you had a great support system to boost on that. So I'm going to offer a little bit of a break for some time for our sponsors. And then when we come back, what I really want you to talk about as we conclude the podcast today here is somebody who's going through this, really give them some tips, or somebody who's helping somebody else go through it, how to really sit down and analyze what the best thing, how do they get through this and make those decisions with confidence. So we'll be right back.
Yep.
This podcast was sponsored by the American Confidence Institute. ACI trains smart, hardworking people how to use basic brain science to more effectively coach themselves and others. ACI is endorsed by top universities, the Strategic HR Management Association, and International Coaching Federation. Learn more about ACI's uniquely empowering keynotes, workshops, e-classes, and coaching certification at www.americanconfidenceinstitute.com. All right, I'm back with my buddy Andy here, who has not just only conquered cancer with confidence. I can't even say it all. Andy,
conquered cancer with confidence.
But literally has, kind of this energy and positivity. I hope that you can feel it through the audio here, because if you saw Andy's bouncing around the screen. My friend, if you were to roll yourself back and wish somebody said to you at that time where you were like, chemo, no chemo.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you have liked to heard then that we can give to people who may be going through it now or supporting somebody who is?
Yes. So here's some advice. If you're going through this, you have a loved one who's going through this. There are several things I did, and I'll try to boil this down to maybe like a top 5 that you can pick 1 or 2 things and take away from this. But I also created a document, by the way, laying out my story and all of the research that I did. And anybody can go grab that for free on my website by going to andystorch.com/cancer. It's all laid out there. I would say, number 1, take full responsibility. I think one of the biggest issues and problems with health issues like cancer is that people become victims. And I think the healthcare system and doctors support that, that this was out of your control. Nothing you could do. It was just genetics. Like all you can do is just sit there and take the medicine. And it's not true. You want to take full responsibility. And that means responsibility that you may have caused this cancer. And a lot of cancer, most cancer comes from bad nutrition, through your environment, from stress. So I would really start to investigate, well, how did this come about? And what changes can I make to prevent this happening in the future? Because no change, nothing gets better. No change happens unless you take responsibility and you start making changes as a result. So number 1 is take responsibility. Number 2 is taking a holistic view, do lots of research, investigate lots of different options. Don't be afraid to ask questions of your doctor, because they don't necessarily know everything and they owe it to you to explain whatever they're doing. I think a lot of people, again, doctors are great, but they don't always have all the answers. And people usually just take everything on faith and think the doctors are God when they're not, right? So listen and get second opinions, do research, but really take a holistic view. Number 3 is remembering the nature of impermanence. Like, this is awful now, but it won't last forever. And related to that, I would say come back to optimism. So I learned this in one of the books I read called Chris Beats Cancer by Chris Work. I think he talks in there about the importance of making plans for the future. This goes back to being a victim. Don't think oh, this is the end. No matter how bad it may be, make plans for the future so you have things to look forward to, and you feel confident you're going to get through this and come out on the other side. So remember, this is not going to last forever. Remain optimistic, make plans for the future. Number 4 is do whatever you can to take care of your body and your health. Don't just rely on doctors. Kind of goes back to the second one. And then the last thing I will mention is related to that, also take care of your mind. So I'm big on meditation. And then the last thing is gratitude. Gratitude. No matter how bad things are, we can always come back to gratitude. We can always find things to be grateful for, whether it be your family, your friends, the weather outside, a nice cup of coffee or tea. I am someone who regularly writes down my gratitude anyway, but I really doubled down on that throughout my cancer experience. There was 2 things I did every single day, regardless of how bad I felt. I meditated for at least 10 minutes. And I took out a journal and I wrote down my gratitude. I wrote down my gratitude for my family, for the nurses and doctors who helped take care of me, for the weather. And eventually I started writing down every day that I was grateful for this cancer. And that gratitude helped me get through so much, because no matter how bad things are, we can be grateful. And that has the power to completely transform your mood and your outlook and your confidence as well in a situation. And I really started to believe it, that I was grateful for that cancer. And now I am really grateful, especially now that I've gone through it. I'm grateful for the experience, because it allows me to have conversations like this and hopefully help other people who might be going through similar things. So remember, no matter what challenge you're going through, gratitude is the answer.
Well, on a perfect note to end this podcast, I am very grateful, not just for this podcast today, but being part of your world, and grateful, I guess, to your cancer for making it possible for us to be together. So
that's right.
We'll salute that. But I'm also very grateful for all our listeners who are there. If somebody needs a positive Some more information. You threw out the website before, but let's do it again so people can jot it down. Here you go.
For sure. So any information on beating cancer, go to andystorch.com/cancer. And I'm on all the social media channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera. And all my career stuff is on ownyourcareerownyourlife.com.
Perfect. Andy, thank you so much. We'll talk again really soon. So before we completely wrap up, I want to let you know that full transcripts and show notes for this and other episodes can be found on the website, www.americanconfidenceinstitute.com/podcast. I also want to remind you once again that the best way to get confidence for yourself is to give it to others. And you can do it so easily just by liking and sharing this episode on your favorite social media channels. You can even give me some confidence fuel by sending in any comments about the topics I've covered or ones you'd like me to consider for the future. So for now, this is Alyssa DeVere. Thank you for helping to bring more confidence to the world. This podcast was produced by Mindful Media. All rights reserved by Alyssa DeVere and the American Confidence Institute. Music written and performed by Jeff Weinstein.